Hi, and welcome to Charlotte's School of Educational Thought and Higher Learnings, where we'll be taking a look at Headmasters. You need a bit of brief history on Headmasters to be able to sort of get this episode, but Headmasters are going all the way back to G1, kind of a staple among the Transformers universe, so much that they actually got their own Japanese show called Transformers Headmasters, I believe. But Headmasters are an organics attempt to take over the body of a Transformer. Autobot, Decepticon, doesn't matter, a Cybertronian. So I believe in the original G1, it started with the Nebulons. Nebulons? Either way. They basically create these headpieces that they actually replace the head of a Cybertronian. And I don't know. I don't know if it's an extremely popular thing. I've never known the Headmasters plot lines to be incredibly fan favorite-y, because I've personally not enjoyed them myself. The most recent and probably slightly more famous example is actually in the more recent IDW series. Before they started with More Than Meets the Eye, Robots in Disguise, there was a long-standing thing with Sunstreaker where he actually became sort of headmastered, and a good human friend of his took over his head and it mentally scarred him, and we're not really talking about IDW, but long story short is Headmasters is basically enough material to make its own thing, to make its own entire season of plotline almost. And so that kind of segues into the massive disappointment that was what Transformers Animated decided to do with Headmasters. So we start off the episode essentially with Henry Masters, I believe his name was, and Henry Masters is every god-awful stereotype of a millennial you can possibly think of, from his blue hair to his rad, totally awesome loser noob, every awful portrayal of a millennial you can think of. It made me angry. He has this idea called Headmasters, where it's kind of a military thing. He basically wants to put heads on robots and then create a military thing out of this. And Professor Sumdac is like, we don't make anything for the military, you're fired. And this guy goes off to sulk in a corner somewhere. Meanwhile, this episode was primarily, and this is kind of where the major disappointment comes from, because this episode was called Headmasters and it actually deals very, very little with Headmasters. The only actual plot that they have is this stupid kid basically wanting his fancy new technological idea to come to fruition, and I don't know, it was lame. It was they didn't reach to the full potential what they could have with this plot line. This episode was primarily Bulkhead focused, in that the vast majority of the episode was dealing with Bulkhead's image among the city and the rest of the Autobots. He's a big guy, he's a destructive guy. Most of his fight scenes involves him using the wrecking ball to just smash things, He's basically the Hulk of the team, right down to his green color scheme. So he was having an interview with a reporter, and the reporter's all so how do you feel about basically being a horrific train wreck of a Autobot, and you cause destruction wherever you go? Are you worried people are worried about you hurting their children? It was very, very judgmental. And Bulkhead's like, what? No, but I've actually got a sensitive side. I'm a nice guy. And so most of the episode was dedicated to his pursuit of art. Sari goes and brings up the idea that if he sort of wants to express himself in a more sensitive way, maybe he should take up art. And it turns out that the Autobots don't really seem to do art. A lot of Optimus Prime and Ratchet and them, they don't really understand the purpose of art or why Bulkhead's trying to do art. They're basically of the opinion that if it has no consequence in battle, it should not even be a thing, I guess. And it was a little unusual, because I feel like that's not really been a mentality that they've expressed before. But yeah, so the episode was mostly Bulkhead painting. And so it turns out that Sari actually got Bulkhead a bit of a showing at an art gallery. I know that Sari's got connections, but don't ask me how an 8-year-old gets an Autobot showing at an art gallery, because as far as I know, that's a very, very difficult thing to do.
Her dad must know people.
Her dad knows people. She's connected, she's hooked up. She can get any job she wants. So yeah, Bulkhead is like, oh my goodness, I just started this whole art thing. Now I gotta have like art pieces for this gallery. What on earth? So he's late at night going and walking around and kind of feeling sorry for himself. And then Masters goes and takes his body. He like kind of knocks him out, and then Bulkhead wakes up with just a head. And I was in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute. Bulkhead's looking for his body? Where have we heard that before? So I feel like this is kind of becoming a thing because, as I mentioned before, I watched Transformers Animated a long, long time ago, and one thing I do remember is they seem to love heads. They seem to just like disembodied heads and people searching for their bodies, and I'm like, my goodness, is that going to be a running theme for the show? Because I know that it's been a running theme throughout all of season 1, Megatron looking for his body, and now we have almost half an episode dedicated to Bulkhead looking for his body. So I'm not looking forward to that. This episode was actually a little bit kind of on the boringish side, because the climax was basically Masters taking Bulkhead's body, going to some sort of a solar energy facility and holding the place hostage for $7 billion. And Optimus is all like to, you know, Professor Fanzone and Captain Fanzone and Professor Sumdac, like, just pay him the money. And they're all like, what? And he's like, no, pay him this way. And yeah, it basically goes how you would expect. They go and pull a fast one on this crap kid, and like his plan fails and he doesn't get the money, but strangely enough, he doesn't end up going to prison. He ends up taking his little Headmaster head and just kind of running off. And then there's this moment where Bulkhead ends up using his artistic techniques to save the day, and I don't know about this episode. I feel like with the title of Headmasters, this shouldn't have been Bulkhead's great visionary journey into the art world. It kind of was. It wasn't a terrible bad episode by any stretch of the imagination, but it was just boring, kind of. A highlight of this episode was Grappling Hook Wrecking Ball, where Optimus Prime realizes that to save the day we need some power, and so he takes Bulkhead's head in his grappling hook and is like swinging him around, and then he just like, I even forget what he does with it, but he smashes something and it was freaking hilarious.
He smashes Headmaster.
Oh right,
to escape.
Yeah, he smashes Headmaster as he's about to escape. That's right. And it was like, eat grappling hook, and it was just fantastic. Kind of another funny moment was when Bulkhead was getting into his artistic journey. He was like, oh, art, yeah, I know what that is. And then he like laser printers the entire Autobot team on a wall, and it was just, I don't know, something about the timing of that moment was just great. And then that picture ends up showing up in the art gallery, and Optimus Prime makes a comment about I don't know, friendship or some shit like that. But anyways, yeah, this episode, or wait, no, I did want to talk about one more thing, the art style. The art, I've noticed, is like severely upticking in quality. I think I was sort of analyzing it during the episode, and I think what it has to do with is lighting and shadow. The shadows and the highlights have gotten really, really good. Particularly, I noticed in Bulkhead's face. And there was some other scenes with some of the humans where it looked like the shadows on their faces was just more well-planned, more well thought out. So instead of like blank faces with like eyes attached to it, like I said in the very first episode, it actually looks like the characters have some depth now. There's a bit of depth and quality to the world now, which is really nice. Also, I kind of noticed the animation quality looks a little bit better as well, and I don't know if that just appeared this episode or if it had appeared in episodes past and I'm just now noticing it, but one thing I will really recommend this episode for is just the uptick in art quality. But other than that, can't recommend this episode. It was boring as hell, and Headmaster was mega disappointment, and I don't know. I just, like, the redeeming qualities in this episode was that we got to see more of Bulkhead's sensitive side, which is kind of nice, but I feel like you could have interspersed that in with a better plotline, especially with Headmasters being the like fairly enormous and well-known plotline that it is, to give us Henry Masters and his millennial bullcrap. I don't know. I mean, you know, it's Transformers animated, watch it, but I can't recommend this episode. Sorry, guys. So that's all for this episode. Signing off now. Please leave a comment, subscribe. Would love to hear from you. And until next time, bye.